see. Perfect. Okay, we're going to get going. I'm guessing people will be logging on late like last time. But if not, no worries. The year has gotten off to a start, so there's a lot of conflicting things, which is why we will post our meeting videos. Let me just let everybody on the executive committee please introduce themselves. For those who we do not know or do not know us, my name is Kim Lanu, and I am the president of the PTSA.
I'm Jessica Casa. I'm the treasurer. I'm currently chauffeuring my kids, so sorry I don't have my video on right now.
Gina Wright, Communications Vice President.
Hi, and this is Anne Marie Ward. I'm the secretary and also in progress with too many things going on at the same time.
Understood. Okay. I just want to give a quick, I'm going to paste the link to our membership, the link to join and become a member. Just a quick blurb about becoming a member of the PTSA. There are a couple tangible bonuses for that, to becoming a member. Of course, all of our meetings and all of the advocacy work that we do and all of our programs are open to everyone, including all of our communications. But becoming a member helps us do a couple of things. One, we're part of a national organization to whom we pay dues, membership dues, in order to be a part of some of the advocacy, national and state advocacy and local, in which they participate. And they do actually have some significantly good services, scholarships and programs that we are participate in. So this helps us cover our participation in that. Additionally, it allows every member votes on our programming and on our budget, and is able to have an increased level of input into those two things. Non-members cannot vote on our budget or our programming or participate in our elections. And additionally, it gives us a little bit, it's the base of our budget, actually. Our membership fees are the base for our ability to have funds to execute programming. The PTA as a whole on a national level, state level, local level is not designed to be a fundraising organization. It is designed to be an advocacy organization, which also does fundraising to support its programs, which is a little bit different than some people might know it to be. I will paste that again just to make sure that anybody who came on late has that. I don't know how to pin in Zoom. I do know how to pin in Google Meet, but so I will just keep adding as I need to. I'll add it one more time for those who just joined, but if you could please click the link and join and share this link, that would be fantastic. Our newest avenue for input, which third time's a charm. We published it a while back and a couple newsletters ago, and then we got notice that the link wasn't working. Same with last week's newsletter. And we were finally able to figure out what the issue was, and we're able to fix it. So I'm going to put that link in the chat now as well. And what this is just a quick form that people can submit that will let us know what questions, comments, or observations you have that we can share during our monthly town halls. Usually that will be with somebody from the school administration. We greatly appreciate Dr. Roland, our principal, for trying to be here for all of the town halls, but in the eventuality that he's not, or also maybe along with him, other administrators will be present to ask those questions or share those observations. And the form is not, you're not required. It can be anonymous. The only thing that's required is that you tell us how you fit into our community, parent, student, community member, alumni, etc. And so that we understand the source of the communication, because we do understand that sometimes people would prefer to remain anonymous. Also, sometimes people can attend the meeting. So this is a way for you to share, give your contributions, and allow us to ask them during the meeting and share them during the meeting. And then, of course, we will share the recording and also be able to follow up if we are not able to get sort of a quick response. If it's a question and if it's something that requires further input, of course, we as a PTSA will follow up, and I know Dr. Roland will also follow up at a future date as well. I'm going to, again, ask for your patience, because while I'm talking, I'm also admitting people into the room. Thankfully, Gina Wright will be monitoring the chat for me, so I will not be monitoring the chat. There are 3 other ways, upcoming ways, that we'll be able to provide input, that the PTSA will open up for the community to be able to provide input. One of those ways is what we are calling, for the moment, to be cute, or alliterative, I guess you could say. I'm just going to put, I'm not putting the link in the chat. I'm just putting what we're calling it in the chat, because the link is not yet live, but it will be after the meeting. And it's Staff Stars. We'd like to have a way to have our stakeholders, which are our students, other staff members, community members, parents, to let us know if somebody went out of their way to do their job really well, or you felt really supported by someone, or your kid just speaks really highly of someone, or you thought you observed an interaction that you thought was excellent, or just anything you can think of that would help us recognize some of our staff members on an individual basis at our forthcoming PTSA meetings, and then also in our newsletter and our social media. Also, as a sort of a way to increase sort of our positive external communication inside our community, but also outside our community, to sort of increase our sense of positive spirit, I guess you could call it. So that's one of the ways that we will, additional ways other than the town hall form, that we will be seeking your input. Another way that we will be seeking your input is through our PTSA community check-in. There are, we want, listen, our executive committee, our board members, a lot of people do the best they can to gather input from all corners of our community, and to share that and to advocate for those folks to the best of our ability. But that can be difficult to do. And so to make sure that we have an opportunity for as broad a spectrum of our stakeholders as possible to contribute to and to comment and to give feedback about what is going on in our school community. We're going to sort of leave this, if you might imagine back in the day, sort of those little, what do they call those boxes where you just drop in your little comments. I know there's a term for that. But essentially it's that, but the virtual form. So it's something that I'll just maintain, that'll stay open for the school year. And anytime somebody thinks of something that they'd like to share, they can do so. It will be more detailed than our town hall submission form. It will have categories of questions and information to submit. But again, we're trying to broaden our opportunities for our stakeholders to provide us input. And the last way that I'm going to talk about tonight is something that is a continuation of the advocacy that the PTSA started this past spring surrounding our Title I funding regarding the level of community input and family engagement that's involved in the Title I funding in our school. And so he can speak on it in a few minutes when we get to Dr. Roland, but I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to work on a Title I community survey for the PTSA to provide input and suggestions on the Title I community survey that the school will be sending out. And I'm also very grateful for being able for Dr. Roland's ability to have the powers that be, whomever those are, at FCPS to agree to share the results of that Title I community survey, which I feel is incredibly important in order for us to be able to advocate appropriately. We need to understand what questions, comments, suggestions people have. And again, it's not a link because it's not finalized. Dr. Roland will be sending it out, but just to capture in the chat that you all will be receiving sometime soon the Title I community survey. Let me pause here for Gina. Is there anything that you want to share now that's been in the chat?
No questions or comments yet in the chat. Oh, here we do. I'm sorry. So we do have a question. Does Justice High School host a curriculum night, for example, in what's FE? I'm not sure what FE is, before course selection?
My guess is she meant February. Yeah, February before course selection.
Oh.
Good evening. Yes, we do have a curriculum night. I believe, if I remember correctly, when I was talking with Christy Hanlon, our DSS, that we do it in early January. And I actually met with our IB teachers earlier today, or excuse me, our IB coordinators earlier today, and we will be doing another IB program night for parents, and they will also continue to push into 10th grade classes to help them develop plans for the IB journey. And we are also trying to pair that with student services as much as possible. We're going to do some presentations to students ahead of when academic advising begins, which academic advising is course selection. And this year that is starting right around January 20th. It's either right before or right after that. So we will have multiple sessions, electives fair, for students, opportunity for students to hear from teachers regarding what that next step would be, the IB presentations, and an IB in curriculum. So more information to come once we have all of that.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna keep going here. Just making sure nobody's minute. Volunteerism. Can't do it without volunteers. We can't do anything without volunteers. And one of the main ways currently that we are seeking volunteers is for the Wolf Shack. And for those of you who do not know what the Wolf Shack is, it is our food and resource pantry that was founded and managed by the PTSA. We are really looking to have folks jump in on our Wednesdays and Thursday openings from 3 to 5, if anyone can, and also on our monthly Fridays, restocking from Food for Others, as well as our 5 times a year. We just had one, so 4 times left on Saturdays when we will be restocking from Food for Neighbors. So the Sign Up Genius link I just put in the chat. And if you if you are so inclined, you don't need to be a regular volunteer. We're not asking anybody to commit, to every Wednesday or even a Wednesday every month or every month Friday or, every Saturday that we have. Even if you can only do it one time, I think that every time somebody has volunteered, they have really enjoyed it. And it really makes you feel like you're contributing in a direct way, which is unique from some of the other volunteerism that we do. So I highly encourage you to give it a chance and just get your friends together, and maybe you can do it together. It always makes it more fun when people do these things together. Are Vicky or Kim Wilkins on the line? Victoria Sneed or Kim Wilkins on the line?
I'm here, Vicky.
Great, Vicky. Do you want to chime in some more about Wolf? So let me just put these links. I have a couple of Wolf Shack links. I'm going to put them in the chat now and just let Vicky expand further.
Yeah, no, things are going really well. Our first couple weeks, I mean, we've seen about, again, similar to last year, about 300 students a week. So it's a lot of fun. It keeps you on your toes for 2 full hours, let me tell you. And we also are now taking student volunteers for those Wednesdays and Thursdays after school for service hours to work our clothing shop, the Wolf Rack, which is an extension of the Wolf Shack. And we're looking for student volunteers to help us keep those clothes organized and the shop open on Wednesdays and Thursdays, as well as parents and adults who want to come in and work in the Wolf Shack itself. And of course, we're always looking for donations, particularly cups of noodles, ramen, and toiletries of all kinds are the ever-present urgencies that we need. But things are going really well. And then the next monthly Food for Others pickup will actually be on a Monday, October 7th, because we're closed the 3rd and 4th. So if anybody's available for a noon pickup, just sign up and we'll walk you through it.
Are there any questions about the Wolf Shack before we move on? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, Victoria, Vicky, and Kim Wilkins, and all of the what we'll call our stalwart volunteers who really keep it going have been doing a lot of work. And I know that I personally am very grateful for them, and I think the rest of our community is as well. But we would love to have additional volunteers. So please spread the word. Sort of related to volunteers, one of the things that we are working on that we will hopefully, fingers crossed, be able to make happen, and we'll have details out soon. It's for our fall festival, which is going to be new this year. And essentially, it's a pre-game event for the homecoming game on October 18. And the goal, we really are trying, not just the PTSA, but the other booster organizations and other parent volunteer groups are really trying to increase our level of community engagement and community spirit among all our stakeholders, students, staff, parents, community members. And this event is one of the ways that we're trying to do that. So I just ask that you keep an eye out for the details and any opportunities to volunteer, and that you spread the word in your own communities and amongst your own friends and amongst the other pyramid schools. It's going to be a bit of a, build it and they will come kind of thing, much like everything else we've done. So I just ask for your support once you see those details come out. Next to last, before we get to the town hall, is the Justice Community Working Group, which is, I'm going to have our secretary, Anne-Marie Ward, expound on this a little bit, but if you'll see in the chat, there is the link to what is the FCPS website pertaining to the Justice Community Working Group and our renovation project. And essentially what this effort is it's a working group that was established by the Board of Supervisors when the Board of Supervisors approved the renovation project for Justice High School. And what it does is mandate the applicant being FCPS, and mandated them to establish this working group to explore options related to parking and transportation and facilities as it relates to Justice High School. That working group has been meeting since May 1st of 2023. Which seems longer than that, to be honest with you, because I'm also on that committee. But I think it was May 1st, 2023, and Anne Marie can correct me if I'm wrong in a moment. We recently were provided with our compendium of our survey results from the survey that the committee sent out last spring. We will be re-inaugurating our parking and, transportation, etc. section in our newsletter. And we'll be sort of adding an additional blurb update and this link in the newsletter. Unfortunately, FCPS has not updated that link, so it doesn't contain the compendium survey results or recent minutes for that matter, but we'll do our best to advocate for those updates. And if we are able to share them independently of that site, we will do so. Anne Marie.
Thanks, Kim. And I can talk about this ad nauseum, so I will keep it brief. I'm one of the co-chairs of this group, and it has been a struggle for us, but we are trying really hard to bring it to a conclusion. Our meetings are open to the public. You may come and listen, you may not comment or participate, but if you're interested to hear, we don't record our meetings or anything like that. And like Kim said, we've been having some challenges with FCPS staff uploading things to the website in a timely manner. We are working on that and hope to have it updated soon along with the rest of our meeting schedule. But I can tell you that our next meeting is next Monday, September 30th, from 6 to 8 o'clock in the Justice Library. And we'll try to make sure that we have that information included in the PTSA newsletter. And as Kim said, we're reviewing the results of the survey, which I think a lot of you probably took. It gave us a lot of good information. We're hoping to use the data as a way to present our recommendations to try to get FCPS and the Board of Supervisors, because we are constituents of them both, to try to make some changes both in the short and long term. So if you're interested in hearing what some of the ideas that we're putting forth are, we encourage you to attend our meetings this fall, and hopefully we will have some things for you to advocate on with respect to the CIP, which is the Capital Improvement Plan, which gets presented to the school board at the beginning of the new year in January. So if we want to have any monetary items to be added to that and to advocate to that, we need to work on that now. And so that's going to be part of our work this fall. And thank you so much for letting me talk about that.
You're welcome. Thank you for your work on that. Last but not least, there are a couple of ways that we communicate with you all. 3 ways to be exact. One is our News You Choose, which is our newsletter, which you can sign up to receive the same way you receive the principals newsletter, the student services newsletter, and the activities newsletter. In our weekly newsletter, we do publish the links to all the justice newsletters that I just mentioned, the principal, the student services, and the activities. And we do actually post a link to our newsletter on our social media platforms. And so that it's just easier access in case somebody is not signed up. And we have recently added the links to all the school newsletters when we also post our link as well. We're trying to provide a way to trying to facilitate communication from all parties as much as we can. We definitely are posting on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So please check us out there. It's JHS PTSA. That's our handle in all the locations. And if you are a registered member, you also get our text alerts and individual emails when we have special news, announcements, links, newsletters, etc. You'll get an additional notification once you sign up to be a member. And last but not least, our new website looks amazing. It has not gone live because we need to finalize our nonprofit status for the platform, so we don't have to pay for it. But Jody McKittrick has been working on it, and it looks crazy good. And one of the things I'm most excited about is the fact that we will be able to share multiple calendars with you all from the school and the pyramid. So hopefully we can become a one-stop shop of not only calendar information, but she has a lot of sort of hot documents, hot links there. Yeah, we're just trying to make it a useful place for all of us, something that we would have liked to have had or would like to have, and something that we can share around. So that will be going live soon, and you won't miss it because we'll be advertising it a lot. But thank you to Jody McKittrick for working on that so diligently, and for her attention to detail. We have 8 o'clock. Okay, that was my goal. Are there any comments or questions in the chat, or are there any raised hands for comments or questions before we move on to the town hall?
I don't see any questions or raised hands at this moment.
Okay, great. I am going to start. Actually, I'm not going to start. Dr. Alon, would you like to give any comments, report before we start to town hall?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. All I have are positives to share. It's been a great start to the school year. I love our kids. They are amazing. It's been really, really, really fun to see them settle in, to see the staff settle in, frankly, for myself to settle in a little bit as well. But just to share with all of you that I am thrilled to be here. I love this school. I just feel like I've been here for a long time already, which is a good feeling. But we're chugging along, and just very excited to see where we continue to go. We've got some great events coming up soon, starting with homecoming and homecoming week coming. So there's a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks.
Excellent, thank you. I am going to start with the responses that we received in the submission form once we finally got it correct. And just in case people want to submit things, I can see them actively. So I'm going to repost it in case there are folks on the call who would rather submit a form. You can do that. Let's see here. Because let's see. Okay. First up is and I'll just say that all of our questions are coming from parents of current JHS students. First is, our student is telling us that some teachers are allowing cell phone use in their classrooms. Quote, some teachers don't care about the new rules, quote, and some are following the established process of collecting them. What are you doing to ensure every teacher is complying with the new cell phone practices? It seems like all your team members should be on the same page and have the same expectations for students, so there is clarity and consistency.
Correct. Absolutely. Great question. I actually sent a justice all to our whole staff this morning, reasserting and reinforcing our policy, sharing all of the documents. I've heard the same thing from students. It particularly started to pick up a little bit last week. I will tell you, my team and I have been doing, and when I say my team, the instructional coaches, assistant principals, we have been doing classroom walkthroughs. I have the note here somewhere. I wrote it down. Oh, there it is. I've visited 28 classrooms in the past 2 weeks, just when I've had some time. 26 of 28 classrooms, I saw 0 cell phones. 2 classrooms, I had to have a follow-up conversation with teachers. I have addressed my team to make sure that we are following up with teachers if they are not following through with fidelity. And I've empowered our department chairs as best as possible to also help police this. Because the reality is teachers that aren't following through, they're hurting other teachers, which I like to call teacher on teacher crime. If we continue to see this, I do intend on following up with teachers. I don't want to go down that road, but the reality is this is an expectation from me that all teachers are following. It also happens to be the right thing to do for our students. And teachers that are allowing students to use their phones, I do believe they are in the minority, and it still is impacting the policy school-wide. So we have some work to do on making sure that we are all on the same page, which we should be. It's been very clear up front, but having those follow-up conversations. And we are also now getting on the PA at the beginning of every period, just to give teachers some cover and reminders that all phones need to be up and in the storage pouch. And the same is true for Apple Watches, just making sure they're on airplane mode, and the AirPods. And to be fully transparent with you all, the AirPods are the biggest concern that I'm seeing right now. And so we're really trying hard to crack down on that. And of course, they are a little bit more challenging to catch sometimes, but we're working through that and are troubleshooting in real time. So to answer your question, I do believe that there is some accuracy to that. We're working on making sure all teachers are following through. If they're not, to have conversations with administration and to really hit the point home that this is what's best for kids. And having done observations over the past 7 years as an assistant principal, I can tell you that the lack of phones in classes that I'm seeing for the most part has greatly increased engagement in our classes. And it's so nice to walk into a classroom and not see a single phone. It really is. You're muted if you're talking to us.
Are there any raised hands or comments in the chat regarding this topic before we move on?
No, and I'm keeping an eye as well. There's no.
No, that's okay. Gina's on it. I'm mostly saying that for her sake, so that she's gonna help me facilitate.
Gotcha.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll definitely raise my hand or speak up, I guess, since you're not looking at raised hands, but I will speak up if we get any new questions in.
Perfect. As a follow-up to that question, I have a question relating to sort of, I guess, how maybe this issue, although it's a universal policy, what is the feedback that teachers or faculty have sort of about the level of autonomy that they have to sort of manage their classrooms? Because for me, this is a classroom management issue. And my personal opinion is that this is something that, in a well-managed classroom probably would not really require an overall policy. And an overall policy is really sort of should just be a backup, and having some independence over their classroom management in terms of how this fits into that. And, what happens if, they have 20 minutes left and it's okay, whatever, it's a testing day, however, just your thoughts about sort of, the autonomy of staff members and their classroom management.
I mean, I'm all for teacher autonomy within reason. In my mind, assessment is a science and we need to be consistent, whereas teaching is an art. And I think it is very important for teachers to have flexibility to really highlight their strengths and the strengths of the students that they have in front of them, because they're not always the same. That being said, when it comes to cell phones, some of the best teachers struggle with cell phones as well. You can have the best system in place, the best relationships, and kids are still going to try to sneak their phones because let's call it what it is. It's an addiction, and it's a challenge that our students struggle with, and frankly, adults struggle with it as well. And so, yes, I do agree with you. Generally speaking, student or teachers with better classroom management have fewer problems, but it's less about not having phone issue and more about knowing how to have those conversations when they come out. And we have provided sentence starters and stems to our teachers to help them along the ways. We've offered to come. We have our security and APs are alerted through an email anytime there's a cell phone concern, and we try to get on it straight away to try to help with that. I do agree with you that classroom management is certainly a component of this. And I think phones transcend that to some degree because of the level of addiction that our students have to them. And frankly, teachers are thrilled that they have this as a school-wide policy, because there are some teachers in this building that have done this, and this is also true for my previous schools, that have done this kind of on their own without the backing of the school administration or with a policy. And it's really hard to do that with fidelity when other teachers aren't following. So kind of like the first question, if we have a handful of teachers in the building that aren't and everyone else is, it still could potentially impact all of them. So as far as phones go, the feedback I've received, and again, teachers that aren't following it aren't going to be the ones that are giving me this feedback, but the feedback that I have received from our instructional leadership team, which is our department chairs, our instructional coaches, our non-classroom staff for the most part, in addition, has been overwhelmingly positive.
Next question is, I could click on the right thing. I find the amount of litter around campus demoralizing, especially along Peace Valley Lane from Mansfield. A lot of litter on the inside of the fence and also along the street. The only trash cans are at the front entrance and in front of the gym. How can we get more trash cans around the perimeter? And how do we get students to care more about the campus?
Well, that's interesting. I've been trying to walk the campus on like a daily, semi-daily basis to keep up with that because I would like to have a clean campus. I haven't noticed it inside the fence, but I can go back and check. Perhaps that's something that's relatively new or it was a rough day. As far as Peace Valley, I don't think we can make an assumption that those are our students. It is public parking. Unfortunately, we are struggling. A lot of these seem to be overnight vans that are just there constantly, which I am working on with another avenue. I don't think we can just make the assumption that anytime there's litter, that's from our kids. And we are talking with our students to be good stewards, to make sure that they're keeping things, that they're taking care of their building, that they're taking care of the location around them. And a lot of that has to do with school culture, right? If it's positive, we want you to take good care. So can I sit here and tell you that we can stop all litter? I can. But the reality is I can't guarantee you that that was also our students. What I'm seeing inside our building, for the most part, is general good care. And outside, we'll do a better job of keeping an eye. But I know our custodial staff do loops as well throughout the day to try to make sure that we're keeping it as clean as possible. And I will make a note to look at the trash can piece. I thought we had some out in the fence along that because students can eat out there during lunch. I thought we did, but I will verify that. And if not, we will order more to make sure that we have that.
And just to be clear, Dr. Roland, they're actually referring to the other side of Peace Valley, the front side of the school, not the side.
Understood. Thank you. I'm still learning the names around. Appreciate that. In that case, I will keep an eye on it. I know we had some vandalism there 2 weeks ago where some students wrote some inappropriate things in their parking spots, which we addressed and then put in a work order immediately to get it cleaned. I am doing my best to follow the one-way sign, so I do drive down that each morning, and I have not noticed litter, but it's also maybe hard to spot because of all of the drawings on the road. So I'll keep a better eye when I am driving down that in the morning, and we'll see what we can do to eliminate that. So thank you for that feedback.
And I think when they say inside the fence, I think what they're referring to is along the baseball field, that whole fenced area, that whole fenced area alongside the baseball field through where you would turn into the school, I think is what they're referring to.
Okay, got it. I will do some digging and look into that and see what we can do. Thank you for the feedback, and apologies for talking about the wrong side.
No, because it's all relevant. I think they just meant to point that part out, but it's all relevant all around the building. I'm sorry, Gina, is there anything or no? I'm good to go.
You're good.
Next question we received: what are some of the efforts being made to improve school spirit and students' perceptions of JHS?
So a lot of that has to do with student voice. I had a meeting with the principal student council, which one of our students started here last year, which was kind of perfect because I was going to bring something similar. And so we had our first meeting where students are all able to submit feedback anonymously. And then a group of students come together and present that to me. What I really love about it is it's solutions oriented. So students are also empowered to come up with different solutions, making sure that kids know that they have a voice up here, and that they can come to us for any questions and concerns. We have a new leadership teacher, and he's doing some amazing work. We're really empowering our student leadership to take more of a role in just being leaders in this building and relying on them to help us choose what we're going to do. I know it's kind of hard to quantify, but just the general feeling in the building, based off of all my years, and I can't compare it to previous years here, but from what I've seen, students are looking more engaged, which I think is great, making sure that they know that they have that voice. We're really working to ensure that all students have that advocate. And some of the work that I've been doing is connecting with alumni groups, connecting with retired teachers, learning a little bit more about traditions at Justice that have been here for a long time that were really popular for students, and working to try to bring those back. And so we're just really trying to provide as many events as possible to get students to feel engaged. And this also starts in the classroom too. We want to make sure, and a big push of mine, and will always be a big push, is that all of our students feel that sense of belonging. And so I really have encouraged teachers to really focus on that relationship. And teachers that are invested in students, that build relationships with students, you definitely see that come across for our students as well. And trying to combat the narrative, and to some extent the true narrative, that Justice is kind of two separate schools. You know, you kind of have your IB school, and then you have students that might be struggling a little bit more. We're really working to try to include all stakeholders as much as possible. And I'm grateful to say that a lot of that work has been led already and is continuing to be led by our student body themselves, which is really fun to see. I've always enjoyed working with seniors, and so I'm trying to empower our senior class to feel like they are leaders. They're setting the example for others. Going back to the litter question, for example, when I met with the seniors at our senior class meeting, talked about, you know, keeping the space great, teaching our underclassmen the ways to be at Justice, to really build that positive culture. So that's some of the work that we're trying to do to help our students feel more of a connection here. And then just generally as well, communicating with our students, making sure they know what's going on, different events. And we're really trying to leverage Schoology, which is the learning management platform for Fairfax County. Was not used all that often for communication purposes in years past, but we have switched over to that. And the feedback that I got from the principal student council is we actually know what's going on, which can be helpful. And, you know, coming up from volleyball just right before this, like, the gym is packed. I'm very impressed with our turnout for some of the events that I've been at, which I always think is a great sign.
Do we have any other follow-up, Gina, before I?
No.
On that similar note, I just want to comment that from a PTSA perspective, that is something that we are incredibly focused on. As I mentioned earlier, that's one of the reasons that we are going to be distributing our community check-in, so that we can sort of get a temperature as to these things, how people are feeling, what their thoughts are around sort of just the general feeling of our community. Again, I do know other parent booster organizations who are also working, and some of us working together to put our heads together to see how we can improve. Just really, it's the sense of community and the sense of spirit. And so we hope to be continuing and increasing our work with the school on this as well, because it is very important particularly how the students see themselves and their school and their place, its place in the community, but also, you know, how the community sees us as well. So I encourage you to fill out that form and spread the word when we do put it out.
And something else, I'm sorry, can you finish and then I'll go? I forgot one thing.
I was just going to say that to follow up from one of our goals as a PTSA is to follow up on our work this summer by inviting one leader, student leader from every club, honor society, organization, program that exists at the school to come and meet with Dr. Rulon and have basically, we had a half a day sort of workshop session. And we do plan to continue that effort as a student advocacy committee on behalf of the PTSA so that we can continue to engage students on a number of levels, because there are many ways that they can get involved in advocacy within their school and in their community. And we hope to sort of propel that even further. So that's another way that we as PTSA are going to try to continue to contribute. And go ahead, John.
And I'm all for continuing that. I loved that day. It was fantastic. It was such a great way to meet so many of our kids here at Justice. The one thing that I forgot to mention is it's either going to come out this Friday or on Monday, but I've been working on just trying to find a way to celebrate all the positives that are happening at Justice, because the reality is the perception of this school, I don't believe matches the reality. Now that I've been here for 3 months and been in school for a month, like there are some amazing things that are happening here. And so I'm still working on the name, but I want to send out a monthly community newsletter that basically just highlights all of our student successes throughout the course of that month. And will we capture everything? I will always miss something. I mean, that's the reality of a school, but we really want to try to highlight our programs, our individual achievements, and share that out with the community, because I think that can start helping to change. That can help change the narrative that I think the community can have about Justice. So I'm excited to get that out. We've been collecting just like the different photos and different great things that have happened over this month. So look out for that on Friday or Monday. And I plan to make that a monthly thing so that we can always try to end on a positive.
Great. And as per usual, we will make sure we include that in our communications as well. Next question. My kids are interested in participating in clubs, but they also do a sport. And it seems like the clubs meet during sports practices. Any tips for how they might still be able to be involved, or maybe some other parents have some tips? And before I turn that over, I do want to expand on that a little bit, because I actually had conversation with somebody entirely different. And this is a conversation that has been ongoing, actually, sort of about the whole, this relates to sort of the whole student concept, where we find that, that because there are so many, the opportunities to participate, schedule-wise are conflicting a lot. It limits the students' opportunities to diversify when they might be interested in multiple things. And so a question came up to me this week, again, from somebody else, about how we could encourage, alternative scheduling, how we could encourage the sponsors, directors, coaches, whomever, to work together amongst themselves to adjust these, rather than the individual students having to come and, beg with requests and, ad hoc, situations and things like that. So I guess it's just an overall, I'm just following up with this person's questions and some other, yeah.
So you are right. And one of the hardest conversations to have with high school students is the conversation about you can't do everything. And that especially is impactful for a lot of our students that would be involved in clubs, because they're likely academically engaged in athletics. And so that can be hard. One of the things that we are doing this year, and actually our first one is this Friday, we're calling them Blue Day Fridays. And during advisory this Friday, students will still have advisory from 8:10 until 8:35. And then from 8:35 until 9:38, when the bell rings for the next class, it's basically structured and organized free time for students. So we're going to have volleyball in the gym. We're going to have soccer, frisbee football outside on the fields. We're going to have basketball on the blacktops. There's going to be karaoke in the cafeteria and just kind of a place to hang out. There's quiet reading space in the library. And then to this point, we do have 4 different clubs that are meeting during that time. DECA, the Greek Club, Page Strifters Book Club, and then the Tri-M Music Honor Society. And any club could leverage that time. My guess is that list will get longer, because this is the first time we're doing this. So we do recognize that there is that conflict. So we wanted to provide that space. during the school day. And also, I'm a firm believer that kids should have the opportunity to be kids. And so I'm really excited to have some structured free time for our students, so that they can just have fun, which is a really important part of school that often gets overlooked. And as for the clubs, we're hoping that we will continue to see growth through that, but that would be one alternative. And I know that that's not the best answer because there's always conflicts in advisory as well, right? Like if you want to go to a club meeting, you can't necessarily go and play volleyball if you want to do that. So it's never a perfect system. I don't have a great answer for you on how to make that better, but it is something that we're always trying to find ways to do to make sure that the maximum amount of students possible can participate.
And so the Blue Day Fridays is once a month?
So it basically would work itself out to like every other week, assuming that the red-blue rotation stays. I believe there are 17 of them throughout the course of the year. But like any week that we have, a day off, it could throw it off. But yes, any Blue Day Friday, they would have their 25 minutes of advisory, and then the rest of it would be structured. We're going to send a sign-up sheet out Wednesday during advisory for kids to sign up. They'll have a day to sign up. And then at that point, we're going to shut it down, especially for this first one, just to keep it organized and orderly. Any student that doesn't sign up would just stay in their advisory class. And the one difference here for this block is kids can also have their phones during this time. So we just want to try to give them a little bit of that. No, Jenna, there's not a possibility it would change. It's more just like next week, for example, we don't have school Thursday, Friday. Indigenous Peoples Day, when we miss one day, that throws the whole rotation and it basically just repeats itself. So the red-blue calendar will never change. I'm talking more about weeks that make it so that you might have 2 red Fridays back to back and you might not have a blue every other. Yeah.
Anything else on that topic? All right. Ooh. Hopefully I didn't accidentally just remove somebody from this meeting. The next question is, do you have more information or feedback about the online tutoring program?
The just to look for clarity, the online tutoring program, like varsity tutors from FCPS.
That is what I'm going to assume they're meaning, the FCPS provided service. Mm-hmm.
They would, I don't really have a lot of information on that outside of what the county has shared. I'm not sure. And I have not seen that. I can try to get some more information on that to see like if it's user friendly or not. I don't know if anyone on this call may have feedback from their student using it, but I don't have a lot of information on that.
Is it something, I don't know if it's been shared in the student services news you choose. If I don't know if you know, Dr. Roland, or if anybody on the call knows, but maybe that's something, if it hasn't been, maybe that's something where that'd be a good place for that to go, I guess.
Student services? Is that what you said?
Newsletter, like I don't know if it's been in there or at all.
Well, I've been running the varsity tutors every week in mine. I can check and see if she has as well, but it's been in there every week since we got the information.
Has anybody used it? Anybody on this call used it or know anything about it? Okay, well, that's something we can follow up on to see if there's a way, what maybe FCPS is collecting feedback, or maybe we can find a Reddit somewhere to share with you guys, or some place where people have given feedback. And it might also be something where we can help just sort of put a little, social media post out there where people can just comment if they've used it, and you can see what everybody's feedback is. And we can share that as well.
Yeah, Anne Marie did link in the link to the FCPS website overall about varsity tutors. I can't speak to this one. I do know that the previous tutor platform that we had was pretty positive when people used it, and very rarely was it getting used, at least while I was at Falls Church. So I think messaging around it certainly can help, but a lot of times the tutor piece for the online component, the onus would be on the student. And sometimes that can be a challenge to get them to engage. So we've really been encouraging them to reach out for help. And it's just another great resource, especially if, I'm sure none of your students are up at 2 a.m. working, but if they are and a teacher's not available, that's an option for them. But I sincerely hope they're not doing that. But I can try to find out some more information on this as well, connect with some of my staff members to see if they've had any students using it and what experiences they've had.
Moving on, how can we best support our student with academics when they are super busy with activities?
So that's a hard question to ask without more context, just because every student situation is a little different with that.
It's meant to be a general, like, hey, we're offering a lot of, I'm going to interpret the statement to say what I thought it meant, which is that we're offering a lot of enrichment opportunities for the kids, but also encouraging, them to take a rigorous curriculum. So in what ways do we feel like the school is supporting their ability to balance all those, since they are student learners, right? They're not adults who fully, know how to balance their schedules or all of their conflicting obligations and study time and the time, spent hours and hours on a lot of these sort of on some of these really intensified activities that they're participating in. So I interpreted that to be asking, in what ways do we think the school is sort of assisting them with that balance? And I don't know if that's just the individual, the sort of conversations administration's having with the teachers in terms of helping students, balance those things when they're struggling individually. I'm not sure, but.
Well, in my opening message, and I think the staff has heard me say it at least once a week, at no other point in time will our students have 7 different bosses, 7 different expectations, and that does not even include coaches, club sponsors, jobs, parents, all of the other conflicting factors that our students have. And so the best approach that I have as a principal is to remind the staff, our kids are not perfect, they're kids. And I try to remind people of what it was like when they themselves were in high school, especially for our like highest performing students, those that would be IB diploma candidates. That is a massive, massive workload that I really worry about our students being able to do that and then do other elements. And of course, our students want to try to do it all. And some of them are able to do that, which is really impressive. They would blow me out of the water if I were their age. But really trying to remind teachers, this is a really hard and really challenging time for them. Also reminding them that COVID isn't that far off. And while we are seeing that, what I would say would be a normal freshman class and maybe even a normal sophomore class, you are still seeing some of the lingering impacts for students that were in middle school during COVID. And so keeping that in mind as well. And then also as part of our school-wide approach, providing intervention supports, remediation efforts, allowing students to work to improve their grade, to demonstrate mastery. It should never just be, and I could go down a rabbit hole for grading, but the whole purpose of grading is to show what you know and are able to do. And that's something that you have to prove over time. You can't necessarily be an expert in September. And so really talking with teachers, empowering teachers to make more informed decisions on student learning and their grades beyond just punching out a number that SIS gives them. And then talking with our students as well. Student voice is so incredibly important and can be easily overlooked. And it's not just meeting with me or meeting with administration, but I encourage teachers as part of their curriculum teams or even just their individual class to talk with their students. How are they feeling? Find ways for them to have a forum where they can actually share that, where it's not putting all the pressure on them or fear of like saying the wrong thing to a teacher. Providing that space, whether that's through me or through a teacher, and then just making sure that we have supports in place to help students that may be struggling academically and finding different times of day, like leveraging our intervention period as part of advisory for providing those extra supports. So I know that that's kind of a long-winded question or a long-winded answer, and I gave a lot of different pieces, but it's kind of a comprehensive approach across the board. And in my mind, the single most important thing that we do is to make our students feel like they belong, and also to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on their mental health to make sure that that balance is there. And if it's not, making sure that we are intervening, that we're getting parents involved as well, so that we can help students navigate that in real time before it becomes too late. And by too late, I mean just like when it gets into that cycle where you're so overwhelmed that you're starting to miss things, and then it just gets worse and worse and ratchets up the anxiety.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments, observations, suggestions, concerns from folks in the meeting that you want to raise a hand or put it in the chat?
Kim, it's Gina. I have a question. Following up with something you said, Dr. Roland, about the IB program. So I have a 11th grader who's, going to be taking IB classes, hoping to get the diploma. You referenced the workload, not just the workload, but just the level of work. Has not just been a step up this year, but a giant leap. And this is from a good student. And was just wondering kind of what resources might be available to IB students, especially at this first, part of the program where they're taking on this very difficult course load. It's kind of like diving or jumping into the, deep end of the pool or something like that, where you're, I think a lot of kids will eventually kind of figure out a routine and level up in terms of their coursework and clearly the amount of time spent on homework and that type of thing. But, if I know there's obviously talking to individual teachers, but I wasn't sure if in terms of counseling or, IB coordinators or people like that, is there anyone who might be helpful in smoothing this transition?
And that's a great question, and they're not alone. Having taught juniors my entire career and seeing it here, junior year is definitely that year where you kind of get that drinking water from a fire hose through first quarter, and that can extend into the later quarters as well, because it's go time in so many different ways, and there's only so much you can do to prepare students for that. It's kind of the first time that that's happening to them. Definitely connecting with counselors if they start to seem like they're really feeling overwhelmed and stressed, I think can be a helpful first start, because finding that balance often leads to a fair amount of anxiety. And so making sure that students know that they're not alone in this. And so I would say from the parent perspective, the two best things you can do is remind them that they're not alone and give grace for their grades as best as is humanly possible. It is okay not to have straight A's. It is okay. And students typically can figure it out, but that parental pressure can be one of the hardest parts for our students to overcome. As far as the school itself, we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities for intervention ahead of time. So students have the option to go for intervention support during advisory. Obviously, teachers will stay after Wednesday, Thursday, or other times to help support that. But I think the big shift that they're going through right now, monitoring their mental health, making sure that they're doing okay, and finding time to still be a kid. And like I'm supporting that messaging as much as I can with our teachers. Like, they're kids. It's okay for them to be kids. And frankly, I think it helps them more than just sitting in front of a computer or studying nonstop. If they are staying up super, super, super late, that can be really challenging. Justice is great. Our AVID program here is so strong, and so many of the AVID tips and tricks would help our students. I do know, having talked to some of our IB students, there's kind of sometimes well, I don't want to do AVID, that's not for me. But the reality is those executive functioning skills would help them tremendously. So I would connect with the IB coordinators. If I'm the student, I would have them check with the IB coordinators, who have a great relationship with our AVID liaison and teachers. And then also, if you're starting to notice concerns at home, I would reach out to the counselor and have that conversation to check.
As a follow-up to that, I'm wondering if there's something more global that can be done. I remember with my older two, I remember there being a conversation sort of about guidance from coordinators and counselors about how many and which level of IB courses to take in a given year, how to balance them out between junior and senior year, et cetera. And then also I'm wondering if there's a way to sort of, AVID is a class, not everybody can take that class, right? So if there's a way to sort of capitalize on some of this, how to study how big of a difference it is going to be from junior to senior year, executive functioning skills, all these tools that might be able to be provided to students, whether that's, sophomores ending and going into junior year, or whether that's some kind of an IB's seminar thing that happens during advisory, but some sort of more global way to prepare them and provide them the additional skills. Because it's a saga from, the dawn of IB, I guess, but just that piece of, kids will say, and I don't know if Vicky's still on the call or remembers, but when the IB certification team came 2 falls ago, this is one of the parent feedback things, was just the kids would say there's just such a jump that they didn't feel prepared for it, right? In certain academic areas, particularly in writing, whereas the expectations appeared, but there was no bridge from, there to here. So maybe that's something that could be looked at from the student services and IB coordination perspective.
So that would actually be more from our teachers and our curriculum teams doing vertical articulation work, where you're being exposed to IB language freshman year. You're being exposed to the same skills that you need to develop, but at a lighter root. I did a lot of work around vertical articulation and when I was teaching at Marshall in our history department. And that is the best way to do it, because you're then aligning skills at younger levels. And then a good example is the writing rubric that I used for IB. When they were juniors, they needed to get a 12 out of 20 to get an A. As freshmen, they needed to get a 7 out of 20 to get an A. As sophomores, it was a 9 out of 20. Like, we were using the same language, creating the same skills, but doing so in a way to ratchet it up for them. And so I've been working with the APs and we've been talking with the chairs. We are doing articulation work. And this is a great time for it because we have new standards in science, English, math, social studies standards. They're going to be coming in the next couple of years. And then IB, of course, always is going to go through different adjustments. So the best part about IB is that it is skills focused, far more than AP. And so there is that opportunity to develop them at a younger age. And then administratively, student services, we're then supporting that work by monitoring, providing resources, and then just making sure that our students are doing okay. And that's more on the student services side, but constantly checking in and having those conversations about those skills.
Is there a way for the students to tap into more, aside from being in the AVID class, more training is not really the right word, but maybe it is, tools? What ways can they access tools that help them learn how to study, learn how to manage time, as you mentioned, the executive functioning skills, and then just basic, study skills? What tools do we have either within the building or within FCPS that can help them boost that without having to take a class or be in a program?
I know that this is not an answer to your question, but I just got a text that we beat Falls Church.
Yay.
And our girls just won as well, and that was not expected. So very happy. I'm going to be talking some trash when I get off this call. And I'm sorry, I distracted myself from your question, but that's super exciting. I'm a little competitive if you can't tell. This conversation is actually making me think of maybe we could look at doing some summer work with students potentially as like an optional opportunity for them to get some of these pieces. As far as the county goes, the best answers are we have AVID and we have strategies for success. Those are 2 classes that they take. But to the point that you're making, the perception of AVID isn't always going to attract IB students, and IB students may not necessarily be able to fit it into their schedule. So I met with our IB coordinators earlier today. We've already begun planning for next year to do our very best to avoid ever having to change student schedules to the degree that we had to over this summer. And so we've begun that work. And part of that conversation was around finding ways to help our students with skills during the school day, not necessarily class focused skills, but those soft skills, the executive functioning skills that would help them. So I think we might have an idea, at least for juniors and seniors, that might be able to help them. But I'm going to do some more brainstorming on this because this gave me an idea that I think I'm going to talk to the team about and see if it's something we can pull off.
And I believe that there was something, maybe not exactly like this, but advisory time, again, pre-COVID, there were some opportunities for this type of work during that time. So maybe that's another opportunity to use. another suggestion. We did already, there is a question about, but I believe we already addressed it. Let me know if anybody thinks we did not address this earlier, but where it says, I'd love to hear more about the curriculum and if parents, students can attend a curriculum night, especially as it relates to the IB program. I believe we touched on that earlier. Does anybody feel we need to go further on that? Okay, great. Barring any other comments, questions, or observations, I do have one question about the renovated building.
Mhm.
What non-IB classes are contained in that building?
I mean, there are several. Trying to think, we have a little bit of every department there. Do you need, I would have to go into this and look. I mean, we have CTE classes there. Our students with disabilities, like our CAPI students, our WAT program is there, which is working transition. We have our testing center located there. We do have AVID classes there. There are several world language classes, Arabic, French, and Spanish. There's biology, there's chemistry, there's physics, and I do believe there is a mix of some IB classes embedded in there as well. But it's not strictly just IB. And these were decisions, just to give everyone context. My predecessor allowed departments to determine who would go and based it off of that. So that's what we continued with, because starting on June 20th, it was a little too late to change that.
Okay, perfect. That helps, I think, illustrate the point, and we can put out the recording to share that information. Again, back to our sort of perception things we were speaking of earlier, there's a perception that it's an IB building.
I have
And
no idea where that would come from at all.
okay, that's why we have these opportunities to sort of make clarifications, and so that's why I asked that question. And so great. Okay, last call, everybody. Going once, going twice. Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Roland. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you all. Go Wolves. Woohoo!